At the harbor of many roads, Aaron arrived too late to feel proud of his catch. His net was full. Silver fish flashed in the lowering sun. For a family that needed supper, that should have meant security. But Aaron needed bread for tonight, and the baker needed grain for tomorrow. Leo had grain, but he had already promised much of it elsewhere, and he had no use for more fish before they spoiled. Rumo tried to help. Perhaps fish for oil, oil for cloth, cloth for grain. But every link required the right person, with the right need at the right moment. The sun kept falling. "What do you do?" asks the narrator, "when you have something valuable but no one who needs it has what you want?" This is a fable, not the universal beginning of money. Human societies did not all begin by swapping fish for grain, then march through the same neat stages. People exchanged gifts, kept obligations, used accounts, weighed materials, and made payments in many overlapping ways. But Aaron's problem is real enough. Value can be urgent, needs can fail to meet, and trade today can break down even when everyone is acting reasonably. Zidane, the harbor elder, looked from Aaron's fish to Leo's grain jars. Then perhaps he said, "The trade does not have to end today." What if Leo released some grain to Mara now, so she could provide bread, while Aaron promised Leo part of a later catch or labor, or something else his household could genuinely deliver? The problem would no longer be only exchange. It would be memory. Who remembers the promise? How much is owed? When is it due? And what happens if the two people disagree when tomorrow comes? Long before coins, people in southern Mesopotamia were recording economic information. Around 3300 to 2900 BCE, clay tablets recorded quantities and distributions of goods such as grain. In records from later Mesopotamian societies, loans, repayments, witnesses, and weighed silver all appear. That does not mean one clay tablet was the first money. It means that accounting came early because people needed ways to make quantities and claims visible beyond a single conversation. A witness can remember one agreement. A sealed tablet, a recognized measure, and a record held by an institution can preserve information for people who were not present when an arrangement was made. But records do not abolish disagreement. They create new questions about whose record counts, who may interpret it, and how a claim is enforced. In the harbor, Nima watched Zidane press a simple mark beside a future delivery. The mark was not magic. It could not grow grain or catch fish, but it gave a promise a shape that others could inspect. "A promise can be counted," Nima said. "Yes," Zidane replied, "but can it be compared?" Different communities answered that question differently. The functions later grouped under money could be divided among several arrangements. One thing could measure an obligation, another could settle it, and another could preserve wealth for later. Some obligations were measured in grain. Some payments involved weighed silver. In other places and periods, objects such as shells or feathers carried particular monetary or social roles. None of these examples forms a single ladder from primitive to modern. A useful object in one society might be meaningless 100 miles away. Rumo could carry a basket through the harbor, but could he carry a claim across a mountain road? Would a stranger accept it? Would they know its measure? Would they trust the person who made it? The history of money was never only a history of objects. It was also a history of ways to settle, compare, record, or transfer value and obligations. Each solution created a fresh burden, verification. If metal is accepted, must every buyer weigh it again? Metal could be durable, divisible, and easier to store than a basket of fish. But it posed another problem. Weight had to be checked. Purity had to be judged. A merchant in a hurry could spend more time at the scale than at the market. Reno, the harbor maker, set two weights on a balance. One was familiar, the other was not. "A scale can settle an argument," Reno said, "but only if we agree on the scale." Standards made repeated trade easier. Shared weights, known measures, and recognized practices reduced the work of starting from zero each time. Yet a standard still required people to ask who made it reliable and who would answer if it was not. This is why a piece of metal is not automatically money just because it is shiny or scarce. It becomes useful in payment when people have ways to recognize its quantity, quality, and accepted role. The object matters. The surrounding practice matters too. That question leads toward a stamped unit apiece whose mark can save time. But a mark does not remove trust. It concentrates it. By the 7th and 6th centuries BCE, recognizable coin traditions were appearing in more than one region. In western Anatolia, electrum coins came into use around the end of the 7th century BCE. In China, separate traditions produced cast metal money in forms that included miniature tools. There was no single workshop where money was invented. These were different developments in different political, commercial, and material worlds. In the harbor, Reno stamped a fictional measured piece as an illustration. The mark could tell a hurried trader. An issuing authority had attested to this piece's standard and weight. Zidane turned the piece over in his hand. And if the mark is wrong, that was the bargain inside coinage. A recognized mark could reduce the need to check every payment from the beginning, but it also made the issuer important. Counterfeits remained possible, metal still mattered, and the authority behind the mark could change the terms. England in the 1540s offers a documented example. During Henry Roman VIII phase of the Great Debasement, the silver fineness of English coinage was sharply reduced. To an ordinary user, the image and denomination on a coin could remain familiar, but the quantity of precious metal beneath them had changed. Reno placed two marked pieces on the table, alike in name, unlike in metal. The lesson was not that every ruler cheats or that every coin is false. It was simpler and more unsettling. When a system makes a mark easier to trust, power over that mark matters. People must judge not only the object, but the rules and institutions around it. And if carrying metal is heavy, risky, or inconvenient, another possibility appears. Perhaps the claim can travel without the metal itself. Paper money did not arise from one global story. In Sichuan, private Jia-Ozi paper instruments were already in use before the state took control of their issuance. In 1023, the northern Song state established official Jia-Ozi as state-issued paper money. This was a Chinese path, rooted in its own institutions and commercial world. A paper note did not become valuable because paper was precious. It worked when people accepted the claim and when rules, issuers, and arrangements for redemption or settlement helped sustain that acceptance. Centuries later, in 17th century London, another path grew around goldsmith bankers. They issued receipts for coin deposited for safekeeping, and those receipts began to circulate as a kind of money. When the Bank of England was founded in 1694, it issued notes for deposits. One of the earliest surviving notes in its collection is dated 1697. The two roads must not be collapsed into a single invention story. Song Jia-Ozi and British goldsmith receipts belong to different cultures, centuries, legal settings, and monetary systems. Both show that value can travel as a documented claim, but neither makes the other a footnote. Rumo stared at a paper claim in the fable frame. So the traveler carries a promise, he said, not the treasure. Sometimes, said Zidane, but then the promise must be stronger than the traveler's memory. Paper made the question of institutions impossible to ignore. Who issued the claim? What supported it? Who honored it? And what happened when credit itself began to create new claims? Today, most money in modern economies is not a coin or a note. It is held as commercial bank deposits, entries in accounts that represent claims on banks. In a modern city, an unnamed descendant of Aaron receives wages. A bill is paid. A card touches a terminal. No bag of metal crosses the street. Yet the payment changes what each party can claim. Banks do not simply take existing deposits, pass them unchanged to borrowers, and leave the total untouched. When a commercial bank makes a loan, it typically creates a matching deposit in the borrower's account. But banks cannot create money without limit. Lending is constrained by profitability, regulation, capital and liquidity requirements, monetary policy, risk, and the willingness and ability of customers to borrow and repay. Cash has not vanished. Notes, coins, deposits, and credit can coexist. The shape changed again. The need for a trusted system did not. That system is easy to overlook because much of it is invisible. It includes account records, payment systems, bank rules, central bank settlement, contracts, supervision, and courts. Most days, people do not stop at a shop counter to think about all of that. They simply expect a payment to settle. The history of money is partly the history of making that expectation ordinary. At dawn, the harbor of many roads is quiet. Aaron's fish problem did not reveal one ancient moment when humanity invented money. It revealed a recurring human problem: how to carry value and obligation across different needs, different places, and different times. The answers were never just shells, metal, paper, or numbers. They were accounts that could be checked, measures that could be compared, authorities that could be questioned, laws and institutions that could enforce claims, habits built over time, and expectations tested every day. Money changed its shape again and again, from grain accounts and weighed metal to coins, paper, and numbers in a ledger. What held each system together was never belief alone, but a network of expectations supported by custom, records, authorities, law, and institutions that others would accept its claims tomorrow.